Du tittar på Ölbranschen med Staffan och Dan. Podcasten där vi träffar människorna som skapar innehållet på den svenska ölscenen.
Tjena!
Hej!
Hej! Välkomna tillbaka allihopa till Ölbranschen med Staffan och Dan. Så jävla skönt. Alltså man längtar så sjukt mycket till varje månad när man spelar in det här avsnittet. För det är bland det roligaste jag vet.
Ja, men det är ju liksom det är lite en bild att man vill ju gärna spela in flera avsnitt i rad. Men det går ju inte.
Nej.
Det blir jättedumt.
Nej, då skulle vi behöva ha en jävla massa Patreons som gav oss massa pengar för att göra det här.
Eftersom vi inte har en Patreon så skulle det inte hjälpa för 500 men
Nej.
Kanske det kom en vänlig man med en kappsäck med pengar och sa att säg upp er, spela in en rolig podd istället. Absolut. Gör hårt grabbar.
Jag tror på er.
Jag tror på er. Det är ju någon så här psykotisk senildement investerare vi behöver.
Om någon känner någon sån så får ni jättegärna be personen kommentera här under på YouTube.
Bara han räknas som tillräknelig i affärsuppgörelser så är det ingen fara.
Okej. På tal om affärsuppgörelser på att säga, eller tillräknelig eller också på att säga, men på tal om inte det så har vi en fantastisk gäst den här månaden. Vi skulle haft med honom på nyårsdagen, för tanken var ju att hans röst skulle göra sig alldeles utmärkt till alla bakfulla ölnördar som istället för att titta på Ivanhoe så skulle man kunna ligga och glo på ölbranschen istället, var tanken. Men han fick...
Eller backhoppningen från Garmis. Du får inte glömma det viktigaste. Backhoppningen från Garmis.
Är det så?
Ja.
Aldrig fattat grejen med det där. Alltså.
Ivanhoe är för övrigt en roll som Sam Neill har ångrat jättemycket. Jag förstår inte vad det är för fel på svenskarna.
Ja, jag vet inte. Sam Neill. Men Darren Packman kommer om en stund till oss och det ska bli jävligt roligt att få höra hans historia. Vi kommer väl ta avstamp någonstans i där han börjar, tänker jag, och så tar vi oss framåt i tiden till det han håller på med nu som är jävligt coolt faktiskt.
Vi ser väl vart vi landar där.
Du får se. Det lär ta en massa omvägar och sånt där också, för att det är en otroligt intressant människa som har väldigt mycket att säga om väldigt många saker utan att det någonsin blir varken tråkigt eller irrelevant, skulle jag säga. Jag blir nästan lite stolt över mig själv, vad bra sagt.
Oj. Då slår det på bröstet med Staffan.
Ja. Nej. Men på tal om smör i tunga så kan jag också berätta att jag hintade ju lite om det och folk som följer mig på sociala medier har ju säkert redan sett det, men jag kommer att under hösten och även sommaren och våren nu för den delen jobba med en lokal ölmässa, alltså här i Umeå då, som heter Nordliga Beer. Och det ska bli så jäkla kul.
Ja.
De har ju valt att kontakta ölbranschen i egenskap av moderator, bland annat för en livesändning som ni, kanske några av er redan har sett, för vi spelar in det här några dagar innan den livesändningen ska sändas. Men jävlar vad kul det ska bli. Hoppas att det gick bra. Vi kommer få träffa några bryggerier här i Umeå som ska få prata lite om alla möjliga saker. Så det...
Nej, men jag är glad liksom att på ett sätt ganska lite glad att jag slippt det här. Nej, men det är nog mycket problem att få ihop det här på 2 personer med tanke på att din bättre hälft jobbar oregelbundna tider. Jag jobbar egentligen aldrig, men alltid på oregelbundna tider när det passar ihop, så att det är väl, det kan, jag vet inte riktigt om du hade kommit och lagt det här i knä på mig att vi ska göra det här så här många gånger på Norlia, då hade jag väl legat och skakat på golvet och tänkt att hur många semesterdagar måste jag offra för det här då?
Nej, men det kommer vara det kommer ju vara jag som jobbar med det. Men jag ska försöka se om man kan blanda in dig och kanske man kan få en liten livesänd ölbranschen från Norlia, men det är ju först i höst.
Precis, och det är ju det jag är intresserad av. Jag är inte jätteintresserad av moderationssamtal, för jag vet inte riktigt vad jag skulle ha för funktion i det.
Ja, det blir kul. Och sen kan man givetvis följa livesändningen. Livesändningen kommer bli fler sådana. De kan man följa på Nordliga Beers Facebook-sida framförallt. Så klicka in där om ni är intresserade. Särskilt om ni bor i området eller planerar, om man nu får det, resa hit i höst.
Precis.
Ja, och på tal om Facebook så har jag på min lilla lista här. Det ploppade bara upp random. Det var Robert Andersson som har den här podden Ölvärlden.
Ja, just det.
Hyfsat liknamn.
De som har nämnt det med samma tema som vi har, fast utan humor-referensen.
Ja, nej, jag vet inte. Robert är en riktigt härlig person. Det går skitbra för deras podd, så det är jättekul.
Det är jättekul, men det är ett väldigt tacksamt namnformat.
Men det är ganska roligt.
Jag kan tycka att det är ett litet spännande samband.
Ja. Jag har ingen aning om hur det ligger något bakom. Jag misstänker att han, om man ser det här avsnittet, så har han förmodligen ingen aning om vad vi pratar om.
Nej,
men man måste ju erkänna att det är lite roligt att ölbranschen och ölvärlden. Och det heter dessutom Ölbranschen med Staffan och Dan. Och så heter ju de då
Ölvärlden.
Ja, med vad heter han?
Robert och Mikael.
Robert och Mikael, precis. Vi måste ju göra något tillsammans. Det är ju uppenbart. Vi måste ju samarbeta. Annars kommer det ju bli fel bara.
Det kommer ju att bli en... Jag vet inte, jag ser namn branschvärlden med Dan, med Mikael alltså det kan bli en jätterolig. Jag tycker att Lockan kan bli rolig.
Branschvärlden är ju bra.
Branschvärlden, absolut. Det var 4 personer som och skrik åt varandra på OBS.
Det låter bra. Det gör vi. Men Robert i alla fall, han bjöd in mig till en ny Facebook-grupp som gör succé, får man säga. Och det är en Facebook-grupp som initiativtagarna kommer från Brygghus 19, tror jag. Bryggeriet. Och de har startat en grupp som heter Hantverksöl. Och den är till för branschfolk inom hantverksöl. Och det var ju kul att man fick vara med där. Så jag bjöd in dig också Dan direkt när jag fick möjligheten. Det är skitroligt. Och det är alltså en blandning av bryggare, restaurangare, importörer, säljare, you name it liksom. Alla möjliga personer som jobbar inom hantverksöl. Även många entusiaster, bloggare och Instagramkonto-innehavare och sånt där. Massa folk som samlas för att liksom kunna slänga ut saker, påståenden, tankar, nyheter, allt möjligt, tyckare, allt möjligt om ölbranschen just. Och det känns skitroligt. Det behövs mycket mer sån här typ av diskussion i Sverige, så att det är jävligt positivt tycker jag.
Nej, men jag upplever kanske det här kan vara ett bättre forum än gud, det känns som att jag kan bara pissa någon rakt i vrångstrup genom att säga det, men att du har de här folk, fan, jag vill inte nämna ölgruppen, men du har en bild på en öl, en burk jämt emot en keramisk detalj på en köksvägg.
Oj då, du är inte ens med där.
Nej, men det har väl någon form av integritet. Nej, men och sen har du de här hembryggningsgrupperna där folk säger det blir öl ändå. Och så vidare. Alltså det känns som att det kanske kan vara lite separerat från det, och jag hoppas att sen den startade har det mest varit, folk har varit väldigt duktiga på att skriva introduktionsposter på sig själva.
Och det är kul. Ja,
jag försökte väl på med något sånt där själv, och det gick ungefär sådär. Det kändes som att typ skriva något form av CV, men sen insåg att det här var inte en jobbsökarsituation, så att jag la mest upp bilder på hunden.
Ja, det är bra. Sune är högsta grad relevant när det handlar om dig och öl, med tanke på att du brygger under namnet Sunes lilla bryggeri.
Ja, precis.
Han är där, han är fin.
Nej, men det är väl, men jag tror att det kan bli, börjar det bara bli lite content som man själv kanske kan skapa också. så kan den här bli en ganska bra grupp. Och jag tror att man kan få ganska mycket uppslag på intressanta människor som man inte tänkt på så ofta.
Absolut.
Sådana här människor som har att det kanske varit doldisar och inte tillhört den här mer social media-säviga gruppen av människor.
Jag tror att jag gärna skulle använda den här sidan också, med tillåtelse givetvis, för att ibland ta tempen lite grann inom olika ämnen. Vad tycker ni som är med i den här gruppen om det här påståendet eller det här ställningstagandet eller den här trenden och så vidare? Göra lite polls och sådana där saker skulle vara jävligt intressant där faktiskt.
Jo, nej, men och samtidigt också att jag menar, vi har ju ändå något form av schema med gäster. Det är ganska löst. Jag har ju en av mina drömbokningar till den 1 maj däremot, men det får ni veta sen.
Det ska bli kul.
Ja, extremt kul. Nej, men, och att man kanske får upp ögonen för lite andra människor som inte är riktigt top of mind, men kanske har en mer intressant historia än vad man tänker från början.
Jo.
Och även folk som inte vi direkt har någon rak koppling till. För nu har det väl varit ganska mycket. Vi har ju haft, jag menar, majoriteten av folk har ju varit, jag menar, dina kompisar.
Jo, absolut. Man börjar ju med kontakter liksom.
Ja, så att vi har ju börjat någonstans med kontakter där, och jag tänker att vi måste bryta oss ut till folk som ingen av oss känner.
Det ska bli kul.
Och det där, jag tänker att det kan bli riktigt jävla roligt.
Absolut.
Men vi måste ju börja någonstans.
Det måste vi. På tal om ingen, så läste jag att vi har fått ett trappistbryggeri mindre i världen, för det finns inga munkar kvar på trappistklostret Aschel.
Alltså,
och det är ju så jävla dåligt. Det är så sorgligt så att
alltså, du måste ju se roliga i det.
Ja, alltså hur mår ni att bryggeriet är kvar liksom? Men det finns inga munkar längre.
Hur har ni tänkt vara trappistbryggeri? Jo, vi var ju det en gång i tiden. Så att, vänta nu, så den enda människan som är trappistmunk har dragit härifrån. Ja, det är jättedumt.
Alltså det är ju fantastisk öl, och den dagen vi sitter här nu och spelar in det här, tror jag det är, så släpptes ju Aschel Bryn på Systembolaget. Det är ju fan en grym öl. Den är så jävla läcker. Den är polerad och välbalanserad. Jag tycker den har så här, tycker om Kinderägg.
Of course, vem fan gillar inte Kinderägg?
Alltså det är så jävla gott, den här chokladen.
Ja, just det. Ja, nu känner jag igen.
Jag tycker att Aschel Bryn smakar lite Kinderägg. Kinderägg-choklad liksom. Det är så jävla nice. För det är lite godisöl utan att vara pastry. Det är liksom...
Men alltså, är jag dum i huvudet nu? För att de släppte ju de hade ett släpp på bolaget i somras kanske det var. Men då har jag för mig att de hade inte en liten champagneflaska till dem då.
Nej, du menar som 37,5? Nej, det tror jag inte. De har ju Aschel Blond och Aschel Bryn släpps ju på 33 år. Och sen tror jag att det finns de som heter Aschel Extra Blond och Extra Bryn, det är ju på 75 år, och de är lite starkare.
De minns väl förmodligen bara fel då, att det var någonting som stod i närheten med det, som farm att de var på. De har förmodligen inte varit det heller, men
det är lite sån här trappistöl som har levt i skymundan, men
den har ju världens fulaste etikett. Det ser ju bara ut som att någon har installerat Word för första gången och hittat lite klippbart.
Ja, lite så kanske. Jag har ett nostalgiskt förhållande till den etiketten, så jag kan absolut inte bedöma den objektivt, känner jag. Jag tog nästan lite illa upp när du sa det du sa nyss, men
ja, den är inte snygg. Den är inte snygg.
Okay.
Objektivt är den inte snygg. Alltså att du använder en sirlig font, och så har du 2 upprepande bokstäver. Däremot fonten typsnittet står Aschel på. Den är skitsnygg. Men den här
har vi den
sirliga.
någonstans kanske?
Jag kan plocka fram den i OBS här. Där.
Titta, där har du den.
Du ser här, vänta då. Gud, jag är på fel skärm. Det här är ett snyggt typsnitt. Det här är extremt fult. Extremt fult. Det där är jättefult.
Åh, vilken diss alltså. Ja. Jag tar lite illa upp här faktiskt.
Du måste hålla med att typsnittet är fruktansvärt. Sirliga typsnitt får, alltså kalligrafi-ish typsnitt får inte ha repeterande bokstäver, för det blir så tydligt.
Ingen kommentar. Nej, men jag fattar.
Det är du och Arboga kvinnan, ingen kommentar.
Doesn't matter what comes, fresh goes better in life. Take it easy, you are full of life. Nothing gets to you, staying fresh, staying cool. Take it easy, you are full of life. Cause a day is a day, it doesn't mean it's okay. There's always trouble in your life. Heavy clouds in the sky, tears are filling your eyes. It's easy when you're full of life. Fresh goes better, fresh goes better. Fresh goes better, it's easy when you're full of life. Fresh goes better, it's easy when you're full of life. Easy when you're full of life. Doesn't matter what comes, fresh goes better in life. Take it easy, you are full of life. Nothing gets to you, staying fresh, staying.
Det är skitbra ju. Vad sitter du och har snackat ner den här i försnacket?
Ja, men det är väl klart. Det är ju det svagaste kärlet än så länge.
Nej, men vad fan. Det var ju, alltså jävlar. Du har blivit lite savvy på att klippa.
Ja, det bästa är att jag hade ju någon grundidé som jag fick spola helt, men det är ju bara prop comedy nu. Det är ju bara massa jävla rekvisita.
Svinbra. Men alltså hur smakade det här då? Det var alltså Founders Breakfast Stout.
Japp.
Och det var alltså med müsli och varm.
Ja, den var ju inte varm. Tror jag vågar ställa den där jäveln på plattan på full
du,
blast.
fan du får inte erkänna det än nu.
Ja, men tror det kanske som fan inte jag skulle hålla. Den här ska väl ha lite värmeljus under, så ska det hålla lite glögg i typ just som för kroppstemperatur. Och jag slog bara på den för syns skull faktiskt. Jag var tvungen att jag drack den kall tyvärr, men
ja, men det är helt okej.
Den smakade exakt som grundölen. Ta bort kolsyran och sen adderar du en grusighet på sista centilitern.
Jävlar. Ja. Men det var
jag drack den däremot ur kaffekoppen.
Det var en sån här müsli pour, med andra ord.
En klassisk müsli pour.
Snyggt.
Det roliga var att det lämnar kvar russinen i grytan, och man kan se det riktigt på slutet, kan man säga att alla russin är kvar i botten. Jag är så jävla besviken, för det är det bästa i müsli.
Ja, det är så gött. Då blir man ju nöjd liksom.
Ja, det är som lite små nuggets, men den var lite svag. Jag hade en annan idé, men eftersom Sune hade pissat på hela scenografin, det vill säga på alla snödriver ute på altanen, så kändes det inte så jävla snyggt. Nej, men han får gå ut och kissa mot en snödriva på altanen.
Ja, det är klart.
Jag har ju en väldigt stor altan, så att...
Sune är alltså då Dans hund, för er som inte vet det.
Den där, han.
Precis, återigen.
Ja, just det, vad är det han gör där? Han kissar.
Såklart, överallt.
Nej, det gör han inte. Nej, men han får springa ut och kissa där på kvällen, och han har ju som... jag kunde som inte. Det blev som inte. Det blev vad det blev.
Det var ett läge helt enkelt. Men du, vi snackade lite om founders här. De är ju inte sådär kända för att vara jättebra rent socialt eller rent, vad man ska säga, behandla sina anställda och lite sånt där. Och vi ska inte gå in mer på just
founders, nej.
På founders, men däremot så har det hänt en annan grej på ett annat bryggeri och jag kände faktiskt inte till det här alls förrän jag följer Worst Beer blogg på Instagram som har följt den här storyn nära, och det är Boulevard Brewing Company som alltså har lagt ut, det här är den senare posten tror jag, men först så la de ut en sån här informationspost om att det har kommit till känna om att det finns en hel del sexism och problem och liknande, och det är anställda som har sagt saker om oss och vi ska givetvis utreda det här ordentligt. Och sen så la Worst Beer blogg också ut hela texten där från den här personen som då sagt upp sig efter att blivit trakasserad för att hon var gravid. Och det är ju bara alltså det är ju bara svinigt. Det är så äckligt beteende.
Det här är ju alltså, jag menar, det här är ju så jag vet inte vad man ska säga. Alltså det är så liksom, det här är så mycket damage control när de vet att det här är åt helsike. Men
då ska man säga att det där är den andra posten, den som ändå var rimlig liksom. För den första posten, det var ju den här. Ska vi se.
Jag kan stänga av den här för att få någon kontinuitet i det sådär, så folk vet.
Men här har du, as you may have read, a former employee recently took a social media. Det här är ju liksom, en person har anklagat oss och vi tar det här seriöst. Och sen så pratar de vidare, men så klickar man på den här lilla pilen här och så till slut så fick man se då berättelsen här. Jag skulle tipsa alla om att gå in och läsa det här, för det var faktiskt riktigt intressant. Och den här personen, om det nu stämmer, men det känns inte direkt som att man har någon anledning att tvivla på det. Jag menar, det är inte direkt som att många personer känner att nej, men jag kör en sån här drive nu och så säger jag upp mig. Det är trots allt bara en global pandemi. Jag kan skaffa ett annat jobb. Det är nog inte så svårt. Jag menar, kom igen. Det är klart som fan att det ligger någonting bakom det här. Och den andra posten som du visar här först nu är ju det andra svaret. Och nu verkar det som att de tar in en extern liksom, utredare för att få reda på, för att det liksom ska utredas ordentligt här, och de ska ta reda på vad är det som händer här egentligen, hur ser det ut hos oss, vi har inte tagit det här på ett stort allvar innan och nu ska vi egentligen göra det, och det är fan på tiden.
Nej, men, absolut, men och jag visste att den här personen som har postat the original post, det är ju, om det inte, jag känner att hade det inte legat någonting bakom det, varför skulle de göra ett officiellt statement runt om det här istället för att bara liksom hållit det liksom till sist, att det har inte förekommit några oegentligheter. Alltså har det förekommit, det här är ju damage control från deras sida. Och jag kan tänka mig att det här är ett företag som kanske har haft en företagskultur där det har varit jävligt mycket, hur kör du trucken? Ja, med kuken såklart.
Säkert.
Men nästan så. Och de måste, jag vet inte, jag tycker att det här lilla statementet från Boulevard Brewing känns som ett kvitto på hans berättelse, och jag känner inte heller att jag har någon större anledning att misstro en anställds berättelse av blivit behandlad illa eller någonting. Sånt måste man lyssna på, för någonstans är det den som har upplevelsen, den äger ju historien. Och sen kan det säkert vara att det kan ha varit på något annat sätt och så vidare och så vidare. Men när de går ut och gör ett sånt här statement, då känns det som att det kanske har funnits oegentligheter, och man kanske har tittat lite närmare på andra grejer också. Så att jag vet inte, jag vill egentligen jag vill ju som inte göra ölbranschen att det ska bli politiskt, men jag tycker att folk ska ha liksom basala rättigheter som anställda. Det blir jätteviktigt.
Jo. Det är ett uppror som pågår i Sverige varje dag klockan 3. Är det? För mig? Eller klockan 1?
Ja, man borde ju höra det i alla fall.
Vi kan se. Klockan 3, som jag sa, är det. Och det är då restaurangerna som går ut och ställer sig utanför och väsnas. Med rätta, skulle jag säga. Ja. Jag vet inte vad du tycker.
Nej, men jävlar vad det låter.
Det här är utanför Oliver Twist i Stockholm. Och det finns... samma sak händer utanför en jädra massa olika restauranger. Men vad det här upproret handlar om är då egentligen att de vill alltså göra sig hörda, och att restaurangbranschen lider därför att det kommer inga stödpaket, det kommer ingen stöttning överhuvudtaget för restaurangbranschen som har det svintufft nu med alla restriktioner de har emot sig.
Nej, men jag tycker väl att de tänker och tycker att ja fan, vad ska de annars göra? Vad ska de annars göra? Det är väl bara, jag menar, om du inte får mat i bläcken och soppor i slävarna, det är bara pound shit av dem på gatan, så jag menar, ju fler som gör det, desto bättre är det. Det är ju det här, till skillnad från att ge dem som ger sjukvårdspersonal en applåd 1 minut klockan 19.00. Alltså den människan som applåderar åt det, jag vet inte, jag skulle vilja ifrågasätta hur den tänker istället. Förändra istället politik, förändra istället lönesättning, förändra villkor, förändra allting istället. Men om du bara kan sträcka det till att applådera 1 minut klockan 19.00 som att det är en jävla uppoffring. Nej, de här människorna som jobbar där har familjer, de har anhöriga och allting. Det här är inte ett hjälteuppdrag, det är ett jävla jobb som man har tagit under någon premiss, och alla är fria att gå när de vill, men folk gör det inte. Men folk som jobbar, och likadant folk som jobbar i restaurang, det var ingen annan som kom på det här, utan det var folk som jobbade i restaurang. De vill synas, de vill göra sin röst hörd, och att om du stör så att det låter lite grann, ja, jag tänker att de kanske stör sig mer när de måste säga upp människor, när de måste stänga ner verksamheter och allting. Så att jag är helt för.
Det känns som att flera krogar, jag vet inte nu bor jag inte i Stockholm eller i en större stad, jag är väldigt sällan ute mitt i stan klockan 3, men det känns som att varenda jävla ställe skulle ju göra det här varje dag.
Ja, nej, men man måste belysa den situationen som restaurangägare, restaurangpersonal, alla som jobbar i den här branschen är i nu, för att det här är inte roligt.
Nej.
De får ju inte ha öppet.
Nej, precis.
That's it. De får inte ha öppet, och jag har mantrat om det här tidigare, att man ser att jag upplever att man hela tiden försöker fokusera på att det är alkoholen som ställer till och att det skapar smittspridning. Men jag vet inte vilken empiri man lutar sig mot där. För vi har ingenting att luta oss mot, utan det här känns som bara en knee-jerk reaction. Men samtidigt kan jag gå in på mitt stora shoppingcenter här i, och där finns det inga skyltar hur man får ens vara i det här centret. Varje individuell butik har liksom så här får du max vara 7 stycken. Jo, men det är för att det är max 2 stycken i butiken samtidigt. Och så vidare. Jag går på Clas Ohlson, det står typ kanske så här får du vara 27. Jag vet inte, jag drar bara ett nummer i röven och så vidare. Men vad är det som vad är det som skiljer det här, eller att ha en restaurang eller krog, där du har ett vettigt sätt, du har kanske 50 personer max i lokalen, eller vad du kan ha. Det här måste ju vara baserat på lokalens storlek, of course.
Såklart.
Men de ställena jag tänker är så här stora smitthärdar. Det är de som har danstillstånd. Det är där man ska använda danstillståndet. Folk där det serveras hippa små drinkar som smakar karameller och folk som är bra mycket snyggare än en själv som liksom spottar varandra i ansiktet och byter kroppsvätskor till vänster och höger.
Du pratar om
där diskotek. Ja, precis.
Ja. Mm.
Men jag kan inte se hur man kan likställa den verksamheten med en pub eller en restaurang.
Mm.
För när jag går på en pub, då går jag inte dit själv. Jag går dit med kanske 1 till 2 kompisar. När jag väl går på en lokal. Går dit. Och sen sitter jag där vid mitt bord. Och sen köper jag min starköl från en kyl där. Och så sitter jag där. Och jag kan inte tänka mig att det skulle exponera mig nämnvärt mycket mer än att jag skulle gå på mitt lokala Coop, eller att jag skulle vara på bussen, eller jag skulle vara på jobbet. För jag måste vara på jobbet. Jag kan tyvärr inte jobba hemifrån. Det är fortfarande bättre än många andra ställen där du inte får...
Du får inte ens gå ut.
Ja, du får inte gå ute mellan typ så här 20 och 04 på morgonen. När är någonsin ett problem mellan 20 och 04 på morgonen? Jag tror det här var i Nederländerna.
Mm. Men jag menar, det finns ju lockdowns i många länder liksom. Och vi har det som människor ändå förhållandevis fritt i Sverige. Och jag kommer att tänka på, det för oss naturligt in på Darren som vi ska ha som gäst här liksom, i och med att han befinner sig i England, södra England, och där är det ju lockdown. Jag tror inte att jag ens förstår vad det innebär att ha en lockdown. Men det känns som att vi var inlåsta under snöstormen som var nyligen här uppe i Norrland och i 2 dagar, och jag höll på att få spader. Jag kan bara föreställa mig att sitta i en lockdown i veckor.
Ja, absolut. Och
tufft.
De har ju inte ens en snöslung att trösta sig med.
Nej,
men det är inte de har en lockdown av anledning, och det är att det har gått åt helvete för dem.
Mm. Men det ska bli jävligt kul att prata med Darren om honom liksom. Han har ju liksom gjort en jävla resa. Han började ju jobba, jag tror han var journalist ursprungligen, och sen så halkade han liksom mer och mer in på öl, och så började han jobba på något bryggeri, och sen så flyttade han till Sverige, och så kände han att han saknade, och så vart han mer och mer involverad, och han blev intresserad och upptäckte att det finns liksom ingenting i Sverige, och började skriva och började YouTuba, och så slutade det med att han startade sitt bryggeri Beer Studio, som han fortfarande liksom är en del av, även om det är mindre nu. Han har gjort massvis med andra saker. Det ska bli så jävla kul att få förhöra honom, höll jag på att säga. Men egentligen tror jag man bara kan säga någonting, och sen så kommer han sköta resten själv.
Ja, men jag tänker att Darren är liksom en människa. Man lägger bara en liten polett i jukeboxen. Och så får han göra sin grej. Och så försöker man bryta in någonstans däremellan.
Lite så är det.
Och jag menar, i och med att ni känner ju varandra sen innan, så att ni kommer kunna referera till saker, så jag kommer inte bara sitta här och bara gilla resan och se vart det tar vägen.
Ja, det låter bra det. Vi kommer köra den här intervjun på engelska, eftersom Darren pratar så fin engelska, så det vore ju helgerån att inte låta honom breda ut sig med sin David Attenborough-röst som han själv säger att han har. Men ska vi ta och släppa in honom i podden kanske?
Ja, absolut. Det måste vi göra.
Får vi göra. Jag har hört att han ska sitta i sin husbil som han har byggt om. Det ska bli kul. Vi kanske kan få en rundtur om vi är snälla med honom. Vi får hoppas på det.
Vem hade inte gjort det om man hade haft en sån fantastisk liten husbil? Ja. Det här är ett litet drömprojekt för mig, förutom att det är jättedyrt och stående.
Ja, det är kul. Men vi får hälsa honom välkommen, och så byter vi språk. Hello and welcome Darren Packman to Ölbranschen.
Hello, gentlemen.
So good to see
Nice
you.
to see you. Nice to see you in my, as you say, my best David Attenborough voice. David
Excellent.
Attenborough / BBC / Harry Potter.
Very good. Very good description. And you're sitting in your van.
I am sitting in my van. Thank you very much for making me sit in my van. It's -3 outside. It's a Wednesday evening. Or can I say it's Wednesday because it's not live?
Yeah, of course.
Like the old Beer Sweden days.
No. It's not live.
And I mean, it's been sitting on this driveway. It's slightly at an angle as well, so I'm kind of rolling into the wall here. And it's well, I haven't had heating. I mean, it's basically been sort of, I've been locked down for so long now that I've not been able to take the van anywhere. So this is the first time I've sat in it for about 2 months. So it's cold. It's a bit miserable, but you know, I would do anything to speak to you guys. So that's why I'm here.
That's great.
But I'm cold.
I can totally understand that.
I'm really looking forward to a cold beer.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, maybe we should let's just elaborate on that first, because I did this pre-recording where I announced that we were going to drink the Fuller's ESB because it's a good beer and you can get it both in Sweden and in England. And then it turned out that there is no Fuller's ESB in the entire country of Sweden almost. It's like a few stray bottles left on a few Systembolag here and there.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. I got upset.
I was pissed about this for maybe 2 days because I took for granted that like my local Systembolag would carry the Fuller's ESB. So I had a little bit panicked 2 or 3 days ago, and like I said to Staffan, I'm just gonna straight up lie and pour it up in next to the camera. I started to look at other beers with a similar color, so I can just pass this off as a Fuller's ESB.
Yeah. And then
that didn't really work out.
Yeah, and then we found out. So what we did, we actually, Don, on your table there's the beer that we selected instead. So, and it's pretty funny because you have a history with this beer, Darren, don't you?
I do actually, yeah. I go back quite a long way with this beer. You know, I was pretty lucky to be visit, I suppose, Brewdog in the very early days back in 2008. I think they started 2007 up in Fraserburgh on the northeast coast of Scotland, just above Aberdeen. And you know, I was a fan. I'd heard a little bit about what they'd done with Punk IPA, and I managed to. I think the first time I went was actually with Car Sweden, which is a distributor and importer that you will know, I'm sure. People in the business will know very well, and managed to sort of talk my way into going to this to Brewdog, and ended up with Patrick. I remember we turned up in Aberdeen. They actually had a hotel there. Even then, I think it was in the family or something like that, and there was 5 a.m. Saint. I remember it on draft. And I remember it being one of those moments, you know, those beer moments where it's the planets align, everything is good, and this pint of 5 a.m. Saint was just so delicious. It'd been a long journey and everything. We got there and we had ended up having about 10 of them, and a crazy knees up night at this pub / hotel. And the next morning we was due to go to Brewdog for my first ever trip, and massively hungover, dressed as a penguin. We had penguin suits, or I had a penguin suit. You can if you go and look on the old Beer Sweden thing, you'll see me dressed as a penguin. I mean, even James, who is the most, let's be honest, you know, sort of media savvy, attention clickbait hungry guy you'll ever meet, looked at me like sort of, what are you doing? So you know, I outshocked James.
That's pretty good. That's actually an achievement.
He was lost for words.
That's amazing.
So and that was the first day really that I drank Punk IPA, and actually we're at a time where they were experimenting with Punk IPA as a you know, a new recipe and a rather cloudier version of it. And again, there's an episode just on that. I think it was called Punk X, which didn't really take off. So but early punk, when it was 6.1%, I think, as opposed to now where it's, what is it now? 5 point something, isn't it? 5.4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your 5.4?
Yep, mine
This
is.
one's labeled as 5.6.
Wow. Interesting.
Yellow card, calling a foul. Well, over here it's 5.4. I'm moving back to Sweden immediately.
Oh, wow, that's insane. I'm gonna get my my can as well because I can sit here
I'm gonna
without a
open
beer.
Exactly.
I have some like my first encounter with the punk IPA. I think it might been in 2012 or something on the Bishop's Arms in Skellefteå. Then it was cloudy, as I remember it.
Yeah. No, I think it's undergone quite a few kind of reworks, I think. And it was actually interesting because I hadn't drunk, in fairness, punk IPA for quite a long time, and it was interesting that you gave me the opportunity to revisit it.
It's been a long time since I had it as well.
Yeah.
I bought two of them this summer or something, like just because. And
yeah. What do you think?
It's very clear that the IPA evolution has taken a little bit other turn.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if this was more bitter. It's.
Imagine how it was really bitter. You remember when it came, people were shocked.
Oh, when it first came.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that is what is so amazing about this particular beer. And you know, I'm a bit of a Brewdog fan. I mean, obviously, I worked with Brewdog for 2 years, and I visited the brewery a couple of times. I visited Elon, the new brewery. Wow! I mean, that place is. I mean, it's just amazing to. I've been very fortunate to see them from, the day where they had. I don't know how many tanks, probably 5, I think, conicals, and the doors are open. The North Sea breeze it wasn't a breeze, it was a gale blowing in. I mean, it was a miserable place to brew beer, to be honest with you. There must have been cold all the time. They had this shitty little office and a tiny little toilet, and we were put up in a room above a pub, with about 5 other journalists. I remember once I went there because it was just chaos. But what those two guys have done from that day to now is just nothing short of, I've never known in my life, the evolution of a company that, before your eyes is sort of tripling in size every month, it feels like, to become now the de facto, the largest name in craft brewing in the UK. And cool. one of the most spectacular journeys of a craft brewery anywhere in the world. I mean, it is stunning. But Dan, I have to agree with you. I mean, I don't know whether it's romantic. You always look back on things and think of them as being a little better than they actually were, or whether you just desperately want to cling on to these sort of, these imaginations that it was the fate to break through the first real craft beer in the UK and all the drama and everything behind it. But it's not the same beer. In my opinion, I'm just trying it now, and it's not the same beer. It's a solid beer. It's a mainstream craft IPA. But I think, as you say, time has kind of left it behind a little bit. I think there are other beers that have come up and a little bit more relevant now.
I mean, something that has became like this very well-known IPA has been pushed back to some kind of middle of the road, and you wouldn't be able to pick this out in a lineup. No, with like 10 others.
No,
oops.
I mean,
sorry about that.
And that's what But let's not. I'm not disrespecting punk IPA at all, because they call it a postmodern classic, and it truly is. And it has defined and it has switched on a whole generation of IPA drinkers and craft beer drinkers. So for that, we should be eternally thankful for punk IPA. So it's a bit like Sierra Nevada, isn't it? Pale Ale. It's a benchmark beer. Everyone's very fond of it, but probably there are better examples of a pale ale now, right?
Yeah.
And I think to me that's where punk IPA sits now. Still a super solid beer. Quality levels are amazing, So, but it's brewed in such a massive scale now that I think, the kind of intimacy of it and that sort of grumlig, kind of dirty character of it in the early days is something that was I'll always look back on with fondness. They can't do that now on the scale that that they're doing it, with the customers and the amount of reach that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, my memory of the hazy version of it, like in 2012, I mean, was probably not intentional. That was probably just how it ended up that time.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know they played around with the recipes, and I think some of it was intentional, and I don't know. But, it kind of, I think it's the same thing with any craft brewery. When they get to a certain size, some of the romance disappears, isn't it? Some of the followers drop away because they think they become too commercialized. It's the same old. I think a lot of that is a load of bollocks, to be quite honest with you. I don't think size determines how passionate you are and how craft you are, but it is a different beer. It is a different beer from
I mean,
the early days.
Craft and size. Just look at the German beer makers who make like a gazillion amount of the same beer every day, all time. I mean, that's kind of craft.
Look at the big ones in the United States as well. I mean, size doesn't matter.
Well,
nah.
I'm not prepared to. Prepared to comment.
No, but seriously, what I mean is, of course, it has an impact, and
yes, it does. It does,
because you get other challenges by brewing a lot of beer than brewing a little beer. I mean, that's obvious when you think of it, because of basically also because of gravity. And if you think of how the fermentation process is affected by a huge tank contra to a small tank, it's completely different. I mean, you have to work around a lot of stuff in order to reach the same effect, exactly, and to get to the same end goal.
It's a little bit like children. They say that small children, small problem; big children, big problems. And I think that's really the same in brewing. I mean, when you become successful. And let's not forget, we should celebrate success in craft beer. I don't think we should demonize it or try and sort of, try and take away from successful craft breweries. We need all the success we can get as an industry. But I think what happens is, the bigger you get, the more complexity comes into the business. You've got supply chains, you've got ingredients that, they're perishable. You've got so many things to think about. I'm impressed. I'm always impressed by successful craft brewers of size. They they're not making it in their back bedrooms, and maybe that romance has gone away a little bit, but my God, they work hard and they do what they do very well.
When you become a certain size, you get to get yourself a forklift and everything, so that must be a milestone.
Gotta have a forklift. We had a forklift. But I mean, I think the first thing you should get when you get a craft brewer is a forklift, even before you've even sold anything.
Word. Even before you get the brewery.
Because then you have your forklift.
Yes,
then
totally
you play
cool.
around with that 10 times a day.
Oh, yeah. It's essential.
All right. But so you started to actually work at Brewdog after a while, and you became the formal, your formal title was that top dog of Scandinavia?
Scandinavian top dog.
That's epic.
That's pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to be able to beat that. That was really, really cool. I mean, the story happened was hello, my name is Ingrid, of course, and that was a crazy time with the Beer Sweden, the blog, and I think that was a connection that really sort of made a connection between me and the boys.
To interject, if anyone doesn't know what that is a beer that you developed together with Brewdog, which contained cloudberries. A lot of them.
Yeah. So basically, I used to run a blog, which is why I suppose we're talking, really, isn't it? And how we got to know each other, called Beer Sweden back in the day. I think it was 2009. I think it started, and for about 4 years, I think, in its zenith. And I was very keen back in those days to try and have a very interactive, a two-way discussion with the beer community, and so we came up with I came up with all sorts of crazy ideas, and one of them was to suggest to Brewdog that we that we as a blog, as a community, wanted to brew beer with them. Never obviously expecting. I was down in Stockholm and I met him at some beer tasting, and so I went up to him and I thought, well, may as well give it a shot. And he said,
cool,
why not? So then I panicked, and basically I ran a poll, I think, on the blog and said, what should the beer be? What type? and double IPA was number one, I think it was. Then what sort of headline ingredient can we put in it? And we came out with cloudberries because they'd never done cloudberry before. And of course, me living in Umeå, Norrland, cloudberries were pretty accessible at that time of the year. So I basically took, I think, 40 kilos of cloudberries in a suitcase over to Brewdog and brewed the beer with them. And not thinking, of course, then we had a competition to name it. And Magnus Svensson, obviously from the Brewdog, who later went on to run Brewdog bars and his own brew, bench warmers. He came up with My Name is Ingrid. I added the hello, and said to James, I was there in Scotland, and said, "Here's the name. Hello, my name is Ingrid." He said, "Brilliant, do it."
Cool. I didn't know that Magnus was involved in that also, actually.
No, he won the competition with My Name is Ingrid, and I just tweaked it a tiny little bit, and because I always think of like 70s Swedish porno videos. Because that was
I'm gonna make it.
Well, because
I always think about 70s Swedish porn. And then we put that completely out of context. It's going to be great.
When I say always think of that, obviously, in moderation, as with everything I do in life, including beer. But back in the day, when I was growing up, that was what Sweden was associated with. And it was always this woman that would open a door and go, "Hello, my name is Ingrid," or something like that. So that's why we ended up with that. And brewed the beer. And it turned out to be, they still one of their most iconic beers.
Yeah, people still talk about it.
They still talk about it. Again, there were different versions of it. The first one was spectacular, I would have to say.
Yeah.
The second one was pretty damn good. I think it kind of tailed off a little bit as, again, the size and so on. They couldn't get enough cloudberries probably per litre that they did in the original versions. But having said that, and then it spawned a whole range of Hello, My Name Is. I wish I'd done a deal with James in those days, because that would have been quite lucrative. But
oh yeah, I can imagine.
If I could have had a penny for every "Hello, my name is," but
you continued to work there, and you basically marketed and sold and handled Brewdog accounts in Sweden and Norway and Denmark, maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that was a job for a few years.
Not so much the day-to-day stuff, but more the kind of beer tastings, the sort of profiling of it and stuff like that.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they were distributors and so on, doing all the hard work.
Oh yeah.
I just turned up in weird places in Yakavari or places I couldn't pronounce, and spoke about Brewdog beers.
Cool. So I'm going to show you something here. I'm not sure if you were a part of it, but I want to talk about this because whenever I talk about Brewdog, if you see Swedish porn, this is what I see.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Let's talk about this.
I forgot the name of the squirrel now. Was it
It's
Susan?
called I don't know what the squirrels the squirrels had names?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, isn't this like chipmunks or stuff?
No, it's a squirrel. I think it's a squirrel.
Yeah, and there were a few other ones as well, but the beer is called the beer of course is called End of History.
End of History, yeah.
And it was the culmination of a war against another brewery when they were trying to have brewed the strongest beer in the world. Yeah. But in this case, I don't think you ever think about the beer. It's all about the presentation, and it's amazing.
It's one of those. Yeah, I remember it was a strange time. I mean, Brewdog were really pushing the envelope, in pretty much everything they did. I mean, I had Nanny State at 1.1%, which was in its, still is just basically hot water, isn't it? Carbonated hot water. And I love hops, and I'm still, wow, that's pretty aggressive. They had that out there. Then they also had at the time, I think, they had the 18%. What was that called?
The first one they did was Tactical Nuclear Penguin. I think.
Tactical Nuclear Penguin. Tactical Nuclear Penguin. Which again, I've got a great video of me actually drinking one of those before I go down a black run on the side of a mountain, a Swedish mountain, which I have to say was the best I've ever skied in my life. So,
of course.
So Tactical Nuclear Penguin for the win.
But is that why you were dressed as penguins?
No, that was just I just thought it would be good to do a beer review on the side of a mountain. But
Wow.
I didn't.
No.
realise
I meant when you visited
Oh
the
yes,
brewery.
I think so. I think so. Do you know what? I can't remember. There was too many 5 a.m. Saints in the mix. It could have been any reason. Then there was Sink the Bismarck.
Bismarck, yeah, that one's pretty good.
I think that was up at. I can't remember how strong that was, but then of course we went a little bit crazy with End of History, and it got a bit out of hand. And there was some beer at the Stockholm Beer Festival actually that came out of a moose's head. Was it like ghost moose or something?
Wow.
There was another one.
Insane.
So they but I think what they were trying to do, and I think they did very successfully, was to try and demonstrate through beers the breadth of beer. They were trying to break the preconceptions that beer is this one generic 4.5-5% thing, and they did it in a very spectacular and controversial way. But I think in a way they really were part of that movement. Certainly here in the UK and Sweden, I think, where people thought, can that really be a beer? Like the icebox technique and so on, and the answer was most of the time was yes.
Yeah, that's true. But you didn't start your career there. You were running a blog before that. But I also happen to know that you worked at another British huge beer company, Shepherd Neame. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I started in. My background is in journalism. I then went into public relations because, you don't get paid very much as a journalist, just so you know. So I did that for about 3. I trained and qualified, and then I went into public relations. And one of my clients was Shepherd Neame, Britain's oldest brewery. I wouldn't say they're huge. I mean, they're regional. They're a large regional brewery. So, by sort of Asahi,
oh yeah, of course,
standards, they're a shrimp. But obviously they own. And still do own. Let's see what the pandemic does, but basically about 400 pubs.
I've always considered them as a big brewery from the UK because they are big in Sweden and they make some great beers. One of my all-time favorite British beers is from Shepherd Neame. It's a celebration beer they did called 1698. Yeah, it's wonderful. Because it has a different complexity than other British beers, especially in the yeast profile, in my opinion. It's so rich and nuanced. It's like a low alcohol Belgian barley wine almost. You have those really weird yeast profiles in it, and I just love it.
You do. Yeah, you do. I mean,
a Kent-ish strong.
Kentish.
Kentish. That's right. Well, it's very. Kent is. Kent is divided. I don't know if you know, but you won't know. But the River Medway actually divides Kent. So if you're born on one side of the river, you're a man of Kent. Or if you're on the other one, you're a Kentish man. And we're very very protected. Oh no, it is a big difference. You can get into fist fights in pubs if you call out a Kentish man who's a man of Kent. So Kent actually means a lot, and of course, Kent being the Garden of England also meant that the hop farms are basically situated all around us, which is why brewing in this part of the world is actually so historically important to the region. So there's fantastic hop fields all around where I'm sitting in this very cold van right now. You can, literally drive, if we were allowed, 3 minutes down the road and you'll see hop fields.
Wow.
Or hop vines. Yeah, it's synonymous. I mean, beer in this part of the world is a big was a big employer and it's a very big part of our culture. So yeah, I became export manager of that brewery. I don't know how. I think basically I was a bit lucky again. I walked into the brewery. I was obviously interested in beer, so I used to write.
Are you back? No worries. Back. Yep.
And I used to write all the internal communications and so on. So I learned a lot, and that was really my first education, other than drinking a lot of beer, about what beer was, and saw. I loved it. And it intrigued me. And so from that day on, I was kind of hooked.
That's cool. And so from that, and then you moved to Sweden, and then you started your blog. And to also something that I mentioned in the pre-video was that you started the forum.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get a lot of attention. But
no.
I have to say, if it wasn't for Beer Sweden Forum, I would not be where I am today. In terms of beer, not at all. I learned so incredibly much from that, and I was there every day, and I was reading basically everything in the entire forum every day, and I was listening to, because those guys who were there, that's where everybody was back then in 2013,
12 or whatever. Yeah.
2014 maybe, and that's where everybody hung out, and that's where I started to realize that, wow, there's so much to learn about beer, and if you just stay curious and you stay humble, you can really find out a lot of things. So I must say that's been a huge important part of me and my learning of about beer, because
that's great to hear.
Yeah, all the bloggers. I mean, everybody. Monkey was there all the time, and Porter Steken was there all the time, and Danko was really there all the time.
That's right. Yeah,
and a few other guys.
When he ever posted, everyone paid attention, right?
Yeah, because there was some authorities in the Swedish beer scene. They really knew what they were talking about, and they were there, and they were educating everybody else by just having a thing to say, and it was amazing. I was sad when the forum actually stopped being relevant and people moved over to Facebook, and I like Facebook groups with beer, but you know what you get there is it's a washed out version of that. And I tried to move over to the Rate Beer forum for a while, but I really never really got into it, unfortunately. But that's been extremely important, and I think it's a bit underrated.
I think it's it was an attempt by me to bring the community together, because it was they were exciting days, those early days, those early years, I think, of craft. Craft beer in Sweden is something that predated 2012, of course, but I think that really was the breakthrough in terms of, and I think blogs had quite a lot to do with it. I'm quite proud of the fact that community, which I was a part of, was, I think we actually made a big difference there to the craft beer scene. Because we were the only ones that were really reporting on this new wave and these new styles of beers coming into the country. I mean, you couldn't find it in any mainstream media, and I think it attracted. That's the one thing I think is amazing about, or one of the one things I think is amazing about Sweden is, boy, when you guys get into something, when you find a passion for something, you go all in.
Oh yeah,
I think that's a very Swedish trait. I think in the UK I find people are a bit more blasé, well, whatever. But wow, a lot of Swedes I know, if they want to learn something, they learn everything about it. And I think that really kind of played into craft beer. And the forum was the forum for quite some time for people to go in and they could nerd out. The geekery level was way beyond me. And I thought I was a big geek at one point, but I was a child in the company of adults in that forum. I just basically kept out of it. I set it up. I pressed the buttons and I just stood back.
I remember that actually, because when I got into it and when I found the forum, I was like, yeah, and who's this Darren guy? Because that's actually how I got into it, and also got into your blog through the forum. So it came the other way. And I was looking for her, and then suddenly somebody posted called Beer Sweden Darren. Oh, who's this? And I started looking for your posts, and I couldn't find them anywhere, and it was mysterious. And then I realized, he's just not here. Fine, everybody else is here. This forum is doing its own thing, and it was just good.
Would you describe yourself as John Hammond in the Jurassic Park movie? He has set up the park and then let loose all the dinosaurs.
Exactly. Exactly that. Honestly, I created the monster. But wow, what a community. I mean, it was self administered. We had moderators, they moderated. I think the amount of hours they put down in this thing, I mean, it was impressive. And I think it was a great, and I miss that. I miss that in a way. I think, there's nothing, I don't think there's been anything like it that's been Swedish centric. I mean, obviously you've got Rate Beer, you've got various, other platforms that kind of, but they don't have that sense of, I think, communication that the forum had. I mean, there was some, if you wanted to ask a technical question about a Berliner Weiss, you could do that on the forum and to a brewing level. Actually brewers were starting to swap information about, process. And and on the other hand, you had a lot of people that took a lot of time and care to introduce new people into beer. They would talk them through what a pale ale was. So you had all the range of technical, from just drink beer and be fun to very technical questions. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really miss it, because the Facebook groups that they have nowadays, and I'm a part of a few of them and a proud member of them. I mean, maybe the best one for me as a substitute has been the one that's called Öl och kakel, which some people are familiar with. But to be honest, it's not really the same thing there either, because that's also it's a lot more social in a good way, but it lacks that edge that you just described so good, that you could ask a technical question and it's a thread dedicated to technical questions about that, and you can create a new thread about something else. And it really lacks that. We don't have that at the moment.
Just how the platforms are built, because the forum you have to take you have to do the registration process, and an admin has set up categories and everything, and it's really easy to index information and to ask stuff. In a Facebook group, it's just a never-ending wall of text, and it's not categorized. And it's very easy for people to access them, so they don't put in that much effort into it.
Yes.
And maybe just come in and ask answers that you can just do a little web search with and get your answers for.
Yeah.
But happy days. They were happy days. And and I think, and I'm glad to hear your story. And I know from personal experience, a lot of people that have contacted me afterwards or even during it and said, what a difference it's made to their beer journey, and can't ask for much more than that. And that's really what, that's success right there.
For sure.
Brilliant. Loved it.
But speaking of journeys, you started out, you started the blog and you ran it for many years. How many years did you go with Beer Sweden?
I'm not really sure, because I had a blog before it called My Log on Life as well, that's somewhere out there gathering dust on the internet. Because obviously I'm naturally a writer. That's kind of that's the way I naturally want to communicate, I think. And so I'd say about 5 years in total. I think the whole thing, something like that.
Oh yeah, and then the YouTube channel with Beer Sweden TV was 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. 150 something episodes, I think.
And that was beer reviews.
And beer reviews, general waffle, talking nonsense. But generally, I think, a lot of fun with Beer Sweden Trev. Again, days that you can never repeat, times that you would get it at different times. But they're the early days where everything out of Mohawk and Jessica Heydrich were they were considered they were breakthrough stuff, and cool, fun times again. Matthias Hammarlund and brewing like Ace of Spades, and it was all kind of new and mysterious, and every bottle you open was like Christmas, and we hadn't got, I don't think, the blog fatigue that we got in the years following that, where everyone was the beers weren't enough, you just had to keep sort of trying to outdo yourselves, and the blogs became more important than the drinks, I think, and we all kind of lost our way maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think since the craft brewing industry grew in Sweden, you as an individual blogger couldn't actually keep up with everything that was released. So you kind of had to, I guess you kind of had to cherry pick. Like, I know this might be good and this might be good. But if you were going to drink all these beers and actually write something informative about all of them, then you wouldn't have time.
No, and again, I mean, the thing that inspired me to write Beer Sweden in the first place, before the TV bit, was the fact that the only beer writing that I saw in Sweden was Pilsner Gubben from Aftonbladet, or is it Expressen? I can't remember now. And there's Pilsner Gubben. Even his name pissed me off. And then he would write, his most investigative journalism into beer would be, 10 beers that you can buy for under 10 crowns. That would be that was the height of his kind of passion for the industry. And it pissed me off so much that I said, right, I'm going to start a blog and write about beer, because this clearly no one in this country is prepared to do so. And I am not the poster boy for writing beer. I mean, I was an Englishman, couldn't speak a word of bloody Swedish. I mean, I was not the correct person to do it, really, but I did it, and it turned out okay.
It did.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah.
And then you decided to stop.
Yeah, I decided to stop because I was at that point. I think we're talking 2014, 15 now. I was writing a book along with Joel Linderoth with Bonnier Factor, which was pretty big undertaking about craft beer. I was also, I had a company doing translation and that on the side as well. I had the blog. I had 3 children, and I also started a craft brewery. And to be honest with you, if you put all the hours together for that, it was getting a little bit too much. And to be honest, guys, there is a point, I think, in any pursuit where there is the right time to walk away, to step back, or whatever you want to call it. And I felt with Beer Sweden, I mean, we together did a lot with that concept.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't we? I mean, if you look back on it, Beer Sweden TV. I mean, there were travels to countries. There were co-brews there was Hello, my name is Ingrid. There was lots of firsts. I mean, I was the first adverts. I mean, the first, the blog being picked up in mainstream media. There was some. We had a lot of fun, but I think it naturally came to the end of its lifespan, as it were. It felt like to me, and I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying it at the end, because whereas before I'd sit down and think, Christ, I can spend all day, 3 or 4 hours, right? All I want to do is to get up early and find out the latest thing. At the end of it, I was fatigued from it.
I can totally understand that. And the brewery is up here in Umeå, and that's how you and I got to know each other. Because I decided to... Oh, there you are. Sorry, you froze there. I decided to send you an email on... actually, I think it was from Beer Sweden Forum, where they actually tipped me off and said you should contact Darren if you're going to move to Umeå.
Yeah.
Or it was someone I befriended from the forum who told me to contact you. So I did, and you had the audacity to trust me, and so I started working with you guys for a while. And that was...
You did.
Yeah,
you did, and I mean, in those, craft beer and craft brewing. Wow, I mean, I'm pretty passionate supporter of craft breweries for all the right reasons. I think they're amazing places, and I think the people that run them have to have something slightly wrong, and a few screws loose in their head. But and that's what I admire about them. I think if you honestly sat down and said, I've got this business plan for a craft brewery, it's never going to turn out that way, ever.
Very good point.
It's never going to do it. So if anyone's watching this that thinks, oh, I've got this great idea for a craft brewery, it's not going to turn out that way. I promise you. Because
and it's not new.
No, and it's not new. Someone's done it. Someone's done it. I mean, unless Omnipolo, they probably haven't done it, but they'll do it, and then it'll be something, and it'll be irrelevant. You won't ever do the first thing first.
Yeah.
So I mean, the fact is that running a craft brewery is by far and starting a craft brewery, because I built it as well, along with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law's friend, or anyone that would help. From the ground up, it was a garage that we turned into somehow into a brewery, and the hours and the heartache and the missed families opportunities, the holidays, the sleepless nights, the money, the money pit that a craft brewery is. I mean, it's literally bucket. You may as well go to the bank and say, can you give me all my money, and then you just basically chuck it at the brewery and see what, if you've got anything left. Well, you won't have anything left. But at the same time, I'm sounding rather negative, which I don't want to be, because on the other hand, what an amazingly creative pursuit it is. I mean, what other job, if you want to call it that, gives you the opportunity to create something, from nothing, and gives you the ability to interact with that process, from everything from, sitting there tasting malts and, rubbing hops in your hands to designing labels to, customer facing. And it's a pretty awesome industry. If it survives, it's a pretty awesome industry, and I have nothing but admiration for craft brewers. I've had a taste of it, and wow.
I have to say, what you're describing, it sounds to me that you're not describing an industry product. You're not describing something generic. You're not producing. It's not it's a production. Yes, it's an industry. Yes, but it also is an artwork. It's a piece of art, and it's actually, when you make this product, it has so much to do with your own heart and soul, and it's an expression of your own heart and soul, and that's what makes it so special. Because when you pour this thing up, and you give it to someone, and they drink it, and you can see their face, and they are so pleased with the life, and they can relate to so much of what's going on inside this liquid. And it's everything. It's just like you described. It's the malts, it's the hops, it's the recipe, it's the idea behind the beer, it's the vision of the beer. It's also it's the labeling and the presentation of the beer, and you get full creative. I mean, you must feel like George Lucas almost. Like you create your own universe, and you really get to express yourself in every single way at the same time. It's amazing.
And that to me is what makes craft so exciting. And I don't limit that just to beer. I just think, that is, and I'm sure we'll come on to that with craft van life, but and what I want to do in the future. But it's people and businesses and ideas and that like this that have this passion for what they do that intrigues me. I mean, I'd like to think I've been on that front line with them for a while, and so I really can understand and relate to what it takes to follow a dream, to actually sit there and think, cool, wouldn't it be cool with a craft brewery, which I did back in 2012. And in fairness, I created one, so but it's their stories and it's their passion and it's their commitment that I think is so fascinating. I just want to tell those stories.
But I mean, everything you say, like you have hops, malt, yeast, IDs, and the science and stuff. That is all tinkering. Yeah. Because when you start a craft brewery, you want to tinker, you want to fiddle around with little tiny details and everything. No one ever starts a craft brewery thinking like, wonder how the economy is gonna be. No. How I'm gonna make this profitable? Because my idea is like people who start craft breweries, they don't start breweries because they have like this solid business plan. They have like everything accounted for, and then the beer just will happen.
Yeah,
everyone starts like a little struggling artist, and I haven't realized I have to be self-sustained. I have to quit my old job. I have to. What are my living expenses? How am I going to support myself through this? Because they're so focused on the tinkering and all the oh God, what is it called?
Säg det på svenska.
Det självförverkligande. Det självförverkligande and all the other things that's beyond the horizon, that's not really the reality right now.
Yeah.
But then that becomes the main reality for people who...
But the intriguing thing there, Dan, is that actually you're so right. I mean, a lot of craft brewery owners / people that work in it are very bad business people, because they're not driven by the economic side of it. They're more driven by the creative process, which is, and I count myself amongst that number. But without that, you wouldn't have craft beer. So you need it. Really what you need is someone who's creatively brilliant, and then someone who's actually financially brilliant and astute. Unfortunately, that doesn't often happen, but that would probably be the perfect combination. Unfortunately, creative or financially brilliant people tend to stop the creatively brilliant people doing what they really want to do because it's not financially sensible. A good example, for instance, is One, which was a beer that Beer Studio brewed, which is financially disastrous. I mean, you have to spend months in a tank. You overhop it to some ridiculous level. So per litre, and we charged, I think, 60 crowns or whatever it was at the Systembolaget just to try and break even. So, an accountant told me that you'll never brew that beer again, ever. Just walk away from that one. So there's a balance, between creativity and commercial.
Yeah, you have swings and carousels. What you lose on the swings, you take back on the carousel. Yeah. So that you have to, but figuring all these things out.
Yeah.
Like your first financial calculations for that flagship beer you created.
Yeah.
I can't see how that will ever hold up.
No.
It will probably be so rose-tinted glasses when making those calculations, and so maybe sometime.
And then of course things happen. Suddenly I started Beer Studio in the bottle era. Now it's can, rightfully so. I think it's fantastic, the evolution of the can, but all the margin, everything changes. It's a moving target. So there are a lot of, I know that there are a lot of craft brewers in Sweden right now that their nose is just above the water. And then you throw a pandemic in, of course, and you end up in a very precarious situation. But generally, people do craft brewing because they love craft brewing. If you don't love it, get out, because you're not going to make. There's only, it's like professional football players. There's only a few percentage at the top that will actually be able to make a financial, a sound financial career out of it. For a lot of the rest of them, it's driven by pure passion.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Wow. I mean, and how much do you respect that? I just think it's fantastic.
I mean, that is, of course, that is valid, because without creative persons or dreamers and everything, we wouldn't have craft beer. But in the end, we have to have means to support these people who are creative, and an incentive to support this.
Yeah. So you mean like gårdsförsäljning, Dan?
Well,
that's an interesting topic.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that just sounds like a good idea.
Well, you kind of put words in my mouth now, but it might be.
To be honest, it's a topic that
lower tax for smaller brewers below a certain litre threshold.
I'd like to bring this, we can touch on this, and I'd like to bring back what we talked about really early in the interview, when we discussed that size maybe does not really matter. It's about the passion and the craft we've been talking about now. And if we then talk about size and gårdsförsäljning, that's the interesting part, is how do you define gårdsförsäljning? Should everybody be allowed to, now you live in England, of course, so you have a different reality, but if you still are in Sweden, how do I put this?
The loading dock at Mariestad.
Yeah, but precisely. Should it be, is it really a viable solution that people could go to Grängesberg, south of Stockholm, to Spendrup's brewery, or if they move, maybe, I'm not sure, but to go there and buy a cheaper plate of 24 cans of Mariestad or Spendrups or whatever? Or should you have some sort of limit on the amount of liters you produce? Should you maybe have because you can't really evaluate the intentions of the beer, which is what we're talking about, really. We're talking, is this an expression, or is this industry? Is this money making, or is this because of passion? And how do you put that into a quantifiable? Because that's where I land on gårdsförsäljning. I love gårdsförsäljning. I really want to see it in Sweden, but I'm not sure we can at the moment. And that's what make this debate so hard, because I'm all for it. I would love it. I imagine if you had, because when I talked to a person at Systembolaget a while ago, that person actually said that it's impossible, and it's not because of the rules and the EU and everything that we've been talking about now. It's more because of, so if a brewery would have the right to sell their own products at their brewery, then Systembolaget would not have the obligation to carry their beers as well. In that case, it means you'd have to choose. Do you want to put this beer at Systembolaget or at gårdsförsäljning?
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot harder, because without Systembolaget, then you basically have to abolish it if you want this current system to work with gårdsförsäljning. And that's really interesting.
You shoot down the entire question, actually, because no small producer can actually survive if they're like 60 kilometers off the coast up in Norrbotten. They wouldn't be able to sustain themselves then. No. They're on the hands of Systembolaget then, because they can be bought in the entire country.
You can buy their beers everywhere. Yeah, and that's the problem, because sorry. Yeah. Please.
No, sorry. No, but I think it's it's such a complex subject, and I think with a monopoly, in effect, you don't have a free market for the sale of alcohol, and it makes it even more complex. I think there are certain breweries, Dan, if you take, for example, your, let's say, fictitious brewery up in, Nicolocta or something like that, then the reality is that probably, if you didn't have a monopoly, you wouldn't open a brewery there. So that probably, there will be a certain, I don't understand why you can't have duality, that you can't actually have a Systembolaget with gårdsförsäljning. I think what gårdsförsäljning does is gives the opportunity for small regional craft brewers to be able to supplement an otherwise pretty, small income from the Systembolaget. I know there's an argument. Oh, there are so many arguments for the monopoly that we could be here all night. But there are some good things about the monopoly. There are some very bad things about the monopoly that I think, obviously I come at it from a slightly different angle, a non-Swedish angle. But there are so many things that I think the monopoly is responsible for holding back the craft brewing industry in this country. There will be obviously a lot of breweries that love it because it plays into their hands. The brewers that have got the ability to distribute, the larger breweries will never want the end of the monopoly. And I understand why, because they have a beautiful route to market. The smaller craft brewers, such as Beer Studio and so on, and there are many, many, many of them who brew, there are some amazing brewers in this country. There are some fantastic brewers producing some amazing beers that really just don't have the ability to reach outside of their 5 or 6 local Systembolaget stores. If you try and explain that to someone outside of Sweden, to be honest, if you say to them, okay, I own a craft brewery and I'm only allowed to sell nationally and of course this is what the controversy of a few months ago when the Systembolaget tried to take away TSLS for a little bit. I'm only allowed to sell nationally to 10 stores within 100 kilometers or 150 kilometers of my brewery. That's it. I mean, no one can come to my brewery. I can't ship my stuff anywhere. There's no online store, or there's no other ability than just these 10 stores. People would say, well, you're mad to start a brewery. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it is. We can't forget that. I feel for people, and I think gårdsförsäljning, I think, is an opportunity. If you look at a lot of the successful craft breweries in other countries, the tap rooms and the online, online revenue and so on are an integral and crucial part of the survival and profitability of their business. We don't have that. We have the Systembolaget, which we have no control over, of course, because it's a monopoly, obviously. So we can't question even the processes, and some of which are crazy. I mean, as brewers, for instance, Easter beers, they want in like 3 months before. Staffan, that to brew a beer commercially to a commercial grade, for a tender which is going to happen in 3 or 4 months' time is ridiculous from a brewing point of view. It means we have to sort of lab up some sort of thing in a small brewmeister, hope it turns out okay, send it off, and then hopefully try and replicate that 4 months later. I mean, it shows a lack of understanding about how beer is brewed by the Systembolaget. And it's just one example of why it's holding back creativity. Yeah, you could get me going on the system. I don't want to. I say abolish the Systembolaget. There are some great things about it. It gives access to beers that person up in Nicolukta down or wherever it would be in the North Coast would never otherwise be able to have, because the reality is that if the Systembolaget shut, then the volumes would go into the retail sector, and there you would get Heineken, Pilsner, you get the big boys.
And even a worse reality, you will have ICA Basic Lager. Yeah, you would have ICA Basic IPA, and you will have that because.
But you'll also get have if let's talk about like
small special stores.
Yeah, you'll have specialty stores. I've got one down the road. You've got specialty bars. You've got online sales. You open up. We would be able to get hold of the good swag. You don't have to worry about that. So
yeah, of course.
But there's a cultural, part of the Systembolaget as well that's very ingrained. It's the temperance movement versus it's the demonization of alcohol that we're still struggling with today. And I mean today. You only have to read the papers to see what the pandemic has done for the brewing industry and how it's being even more demonized.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a thing during this conversation, and that is what actually you're talking about the sales and about the new revenues that it's a new income source basically, but for a small brewery to have gårdsförsäljning. But what it also is to me, and one of the more important things to me, is that it actually turns the brewery more into how do you say it? It becomes a place of interest. I just lost the English word. It's like a tourist venue. It becomes interesting to visit in a different way, and you could actually, it becomes a tourist location. You can actually have the argument that if you had gårdsförsäljning allowed at breweries, tourism would increase in the area, because people will travel there in order to visit the brewery and try their beers and buy their beers, and you will get all kinds of side effects that follows that. And that's something that nobody talks about in Sweden.
They don't, and they should, because we've all been there. We've all been on holiday. We've all driven through. Well, I say we've all, but a lot of us have driven through continental Europe, and we've stopped off at little vineyards and so on, and we've loved it. And I think you're right. I mean, if we're able to open up gårdsförsäljning, now there are some ifs and buts. I mean, to be able to employ someone we don't know the rules and regulations. Sweden, we have a lot of red tape and rules and regulations. So I can imagine, I can imagine having, if you're open for gårdsförsäljning, you'd have to have a certain amount of, facilities for everyone. You'd have to have someone would have to be employed, and that's not cheap in Sweden, and so on and so forth. So financially, it may not stack up, but for some breweries. But on the other hand, as you say, and as Staffan, because you gave a lot of talks at Beer Studio, and I gave a lot of talks at Beer Studio, and to me, it was a fantastic opportunity to get people in, to educate. I suppose that's too lofty a word, but yeah, I suppose we did educate people as to what craft beer is. And I don't think there's any more powerful way of doing it. I mean, because unfortunately, to me, the Swedish setup now, and for many years, has been to basically demonize alcohol and demonize beer as one sort of form of it. I think the most persuasive, most powerful way of getting people to drink responsibly is to get them into a brewery. Because I think there you'll understand the passion, you'll understand the thinking behind it, you'll understand the reverence towards it, you'll understand it's not something that you get a six-pack of and drink in a park until, you can't, your legs don't work anymore. That's not the point of what we do. And I think, to be able to get people in and show them the craft of craft brewing is probably the most powerful thing you could do to change someone's attitudes towards alcohol. And it's a damn sight more effective than just selling it at $6.90 or whatever the last stupid lager that came into the system lager it was. It's a damn sight more effective than that.
That's a really great point. And the educational aspect, just as you said, I hosted a lot of brewery tastings when you didn't. And I had the good fortune also to actually attend a few of yours. And I learned a lot about that from them, sorry. But you really put your heart and soul into that brewery, into Beer Studio, and it really almost broke you as a person. And as I understand, you got burnt out.
Yeah, I had. I worked very hard for my burnout. I worked very hard for my utmattning syndrome. I mean, there was a day, I think, actually it wasn't a single day. It was a gradual thing, but
it was,
I think you started to feel, I felt very nauseous most days, and that kind of passion that I've really just been fueled by for decades wasn't really there. And cognitively I was, forgetting things, and it was pretty weird actually. And I think it was a combination of not just the brewery, but all these other things going on that combined into the mix. And and eventually it got to the point where I was physically ill. I mean, it was more a physical thing for me. I mean, my body just basically said, no. I think I'd had 1 week off in 3 years, and. And of course, when you're self-employed, you don't have the luxury of paid holidays, and you wing it, and you get into that cycle of the more you work, the more successful you'll be, the more money you'll earn, and you end up always working, and that's not good.
I remember very clearly once. When you started to come back from the first leave that you had to take, which you were reluctant to take, I remember that because, like you said, it was your company. So you put. I mean, it's kind of hard to walk away from something that you're all in. You're, as you say in poker, you're pot committed to show up every day. But I remember we were standing and we were bottling. I think it was the lager beer that we had at that time. It's called Remix. And you were standing there and you were bottling beer, and then you were like, "Come feel my pulse," and your heart was racing. It was insane. Yeah. So we just told Darren, "You cannot stay here. You have to go to the hospital." And I remember you were like, "Yeah, sure, I'll get in the car." And we were like, "No, do not get in the car." It was after that, really.
I made a few bad decisions in those days.
I'm sorry if I'm putting it out there, but I just remember this as... No. Because I remember what came out of this was also that actually you started to finally realize what you were doing to yourself. It was that was like the turning point where you started to realize, oh shit, I have stuff to do, and it's about me. And then you started to come back.
And do you know what? It's actually, I mean, it's a fascinating subject, and it's one that I feel I need to talk more about, actually, not necessarily on this, in any depth here, but generally, I think it's one of those things. I think I was very much a kind of a, not alpha, but, I was very driven. I was very driven. And to a certain extent, I still am, but I think I was unhealthily driven in those days, and so I didn't really accept. I could never switch off. because, you know, Beer Sweden, for instance, was a 24-hour thing. I mean, I could be sitting on the laptop at 11 o'clock at night. There was no off. There was never, it was, you know, there were people communicating and chatting, you know, 24 hours, literally. And so, you know, cumulatively, that wore me down, I think. But I still never gave up. I still had the wrong mindset. So even when I was told, look, I went into the hospital, as you said, I actually went into the hospital. I ended up with my pulse was 227 beats per minute, which is, you know, my resting is 60. So it was like quadruple.
It was insane.
So, you know, it was pretty unhealthy. They called an ambulance. I was taken to the hospital. And I'm like, no, I'll drive. Because to me, I'd had these palpitations for so long. I was thinking, pretty normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was put on some sort of stress course, I think, you know, cognitive Corbier course.
Cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think 7 weeks through it, the head of the course took me into the office and said, look, Darren, I don't think you're really taking this seriously, because I was the only one that was still working in this group. And I would sit there stressing about having to, you know, can we get through this lesson? Because I need to go back to the brewery, which was clearly not the point of getting stressed by the stress course. You know, so I was at the end of it. I was like, can you just all quick, you know, say your stuff, you know, get on with it, because I've got to get back to work. And she basically said, you know, she called me in and said, that's it. You know, you either quit, you know, you're not allowed to work. And do you know what? That was the first time someone said I couldn't work. And that was probably the best thing that anyone could have done. And so for like 12 weeks, I think, and it was very difficult for me. I still, you know, but I learned a lot then. I learned an awful lot then. And so, you know, and I know there's a lot of people in the brewing industry, or a lot of industries, and of course right now as well, where stress, you can never underestimate stress. It's a silent killer, and it really is, and it's a very dangerous thing. And I think I'm a much better person now. I still struggle, and I still have my days where I want to do everything, and I want to do it too fast. But I definitely feel that I've learned the warning signs, and I understand a lot better than I did.
And after a while, this is actually what got you back into writing. Am I right?
Yeah. But I didn't want to write. I didn't want to write for years.
Was it this time you started the Burnt Out Beer Guy?
Yes.
And I think it was so telling, because it wasn't that much material produced under that name. So it became like a self-fulfilling prophecy around that.
Burnt out. Of the Burnt Out Beer Guy. No, not really. I didn't really burn out, but basically, yeah, it was kind of, that was going to be, you know, my mind was still, you know, I couldn't do that. So I've always wanted to do something else. And I think that's good. It's just, I shouldn't do 70 hours a week of it. You know, that's really what I've learned. So I've got better at saying no. You know, and I'm choosing my jobs and my assignments a lot better, I think, than I did in the past. I said yes to everything, and you know, I you know, and it's because none of it was commercial. I mean, I would travel to various countries on my own dime. You know, I never really got paid very much for anything, and I did it all on passion. You know, I'll never be rich from craft beer, and that's fine. I'm not, you know, I don't expect to be, but you also have to try and balance some of the passion with a little bit of reality now and again. I've learned.
But it got you started into the writing again, and then it kind of went dormant, and it's been quiet from you for a while. And I know that you're carrying on with certain tasks at Bear Studio, even though you're not involved in the creative process that much, actively at least. But now, let's get back to the start. You're in a van.
I am in a van.
You're in a van. It doesn't look like you're in a van. It looks like you're in a living room or like in a bedroom or something like that.
Can I sort of like swing around?
Yeah, cool. So that's the bed.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on MTV Cribs now, don't I?
You kind of are.
You
That's where
kind
the
of are.
magic
It's
where the
little
magic
cribs.
happened.
It's the
Yeah.
craft beer
Oh,
cribs.
yeah.
And then
All right.
I don't know if you can see. I can't see what you can see now, but
Oh, yeah.
basically,
So that's the kitchen, and behind
This is the kitchen area.
and then
behind
behind
the
the
curtain is the cab. That's the cab. You know,
that's where you drive.
where-
All right. So that's
that's
the
where I
end of
drive.
the. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got a side door. You know,
Mhm.
side door here.
Yeah.
We've got a bed,
Mhm.
and underneath the bed there's storage. You know,
Mhm.
I've got all my equipment and climbing stuff and clothes and bits and pieces. I've got a sink, 2-hob burner,
Mhm.
a fridge. Well, obviously very important, so I can keep all the beer.
Cool.
I've got a toilet, but I don't want to talk about that.
Wait. You actually crammed the toilet into this? Or is
I've
that
got a-
just a little
And I've
extended
got a toilet. No,
board?
I've got a Thetford, cassette toilet, which I haven't used and I've got no plans to ever use. But I just got a little spade and just wait for dark, or pull up at a pub and use their facilities. But so I haven't really got around to that, to working out that bit yet. But yeah, but I mean, basically, it was an old Transit, Renault Master van, and I spent about 4 months creating this homage to IKEA. There's a lot of wood. It's got that kind of sauna vibe to it.
Mhm.
It's literally got a lot of IKEA in it. Yeah, it's my little Swedish home on wheels, really.
That's really cool. And you call this project, what do you call it?
Craft fan life. So this is me trying to slow down and what have you. But I think on reflection of all the things that I've been through, the thing that I missed the most, that not running a brewery, the day-to-day grind of it, but the people, the people that I met and I know and I respect and love, they're all still there, and I just feel that their stories, those craft stories, need to be told. And I kind of looked at what's happened in the Swedish blogosphere and in other media channels, YouTube and so on. I still don't feel that there is. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you've found anyone that's really told those stories in any sort of, in any sort of way that a regular way. I mean, I know there's always there's a little article here or there about Swedish craft beer, but in a concerted, regular way that's actually showcased how good the Swedish craft beer scene is. I can't see it, and so the idea is that I've converted this van into a mobile kind of office / living accommodation. The idea was actually last year to jump in the van, drive it over to Sweden, and basically just cruise around the entire country, visiting really cool, friendly, fun craft breweries, and not just breweries, but places that embody craft and tell their story.
I feel since you want to produce everything yourself and tell their story by yourself, but hope no one is watching now, because this would actually become a quite good little TV series. But I don't hope any filthy producers on like TV3 or Kanal 5 sees this. No, it doesn't matter because no one watching this anyway. So
yeah, you're right.
But this actually just to get just to get the production value up and build this strange British man living in this little IKEA transit, going door to door,
north south. And and the thing is that I'll jump into breweries, and I mean, my hope is that I know a lot of people in the brewing industry, of course. So basically, it's visiting friends, right? And I'll be able to jump in. I'll be able to mash in with a few of them. I have an unusual perspective because I've run a brewery, so I understand the brewing side of it. But more than that, it's basically just showcasing these amazing people, and there are so many of them, and there's so many cool stories that really sell themselves. And so it's a little bit of a travel log, where you can I've got drones. I've spent a lot of money now to create photography. I'm pretty into photography. So it will be high quality production is the idea, and basically travel around and talk about where the brewery is situated, and what they do, and basically travel Sweden one beer at a time.
Excellent.
I mean, when you do this, we have a gazillion brewers in Sweden now. Maybe in a year we don't have that many, but maybe you could make some kind of questionnaire or something and try to make a conclusion on their hardships and their what do they see as would be a key to success for them to self-sustain, without being the next burned out beer guy for 2022.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, well, let's hope it's going to be a real odyssey. I mean, my start date keeps going back and back. I really can't tell you right now. It's so frustrating. I mean, I have a van, as you can see. It's good to go. I mean, it's literally, I could leave. Well, I've just had a beer, probably not tonight, but I could leave tomorrow, but I can't. I mean, we're locked down now for, we passed a very sad milestone. Yesterday in the UK with 100,000 deaths. We're not going to be out of this, anytime before the summer, and I don't think. And so it's enormously frustrating. But the day that I am allowed to travel responsibly, I'm going to be there, and we're going to start this thing. And it's not just going to be Sweden either. I mean, I've got plans to go to France and to Italy and to the south of Europe as well, where it's slightly warmer. That would be nice. But with the same concept of someone, a little boulangerie somewhere, or it could be someone who does lovely cognac, or a whiskey producer up in Scotland. Again, the craft is a pursuit. It's an attitude, and that doesn't just confine itself to beer. It could be to it could be to sourdough bread, it could be to coffee, it could be to cheese. And so to all those people that I want to just drive up, rock up in the van, open the door, in I go, and I can bring some of the food and some of the beer back and maybe review it in the van. I can have people join me on my journey. I've got plenty of people that want to spend a few days in the van, and we go to here, there, or wherever. And it's just going to be an immersive, fun journey through the country.
Excellent.
I mean, it sounds like an amazing project, actually.
It's going to be great.
I mean,
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
And I showed a little bit of your social media here. You have the Instagram and you have the YouTube channel, but you don't have any content on the YouTube channel yet.
No,
but we have over 100 subscribers at the moment, which is amazing. I never imagined that, and I would advise everybody
we're heading for the big time, boys. We're heading for the big time.
I would advise every single subscriber of our YouTube channel to go to the Craft Van Life channel and subscribe to that as well, because you do not want to miss this journey. So I'll put a link in the description to that, and follow Darren everywhere you get the chance. Do you have a Facebook page as well?
I do. Yeah, Craft Van Life. Yeah. So if you just search for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, as I say, it's very much in limbo at the moment. Well, I say in limbo, but I occasionally post. But I really want to, when I want to start properly. And there's only so many ways that you can photograph or film a van that's parked on a driveway. And I don't think it really captures the essence of it. So, but I mean, I'm warming up. I'm trying to, learn a lot more about filmography and videography and photography. And so I'm trying to sort of sharpen my skills during the lockdown because there's very little else to do. So, so that the day I can start, we're going to hit the floor running.
Excellent. Sounds great. All right, Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much for taking your time. This was great.
And I was kind of worried because I think we could easily have done this 3 hours more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much more to go on.
I haven't even started, boys.
No. I actually think
you have to get me on again.
Yeah, sure, of course.
I was looking at the clock and what? We're not gonna finish this story today.
No.
Done a little primer for Darren Packman.
Yeah, Darren, we would love to have you back, and especially when you get your journey started on this new project, we would love to.
That's gonna be great content.
Do a podcast from the van.
I'm sure. I'm in. I'm all in. Of course, that would be great.
Of course.
Let's do it.
You can pick this little sucker up in Umeå and drive up to Ölsvängen.
No problem.
Sounds great.
We'll go up there. We'll open the door. Let the mosquitoes in. Have a few beers. It'll be fantastic.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
All right, Darren. Thank you again for stopping by at Ölbranschen. And like I said, everybody should follow Darren on Craft Van Life at YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Do you have Twitter as well?
I don't. No, I haven't got enough time in the day. Remember, I'm trying to take it easy. I've only got 3 social media channels. That's
Nobody has
enough,
Twitter. Nobody has Twitter in craft beer Sweden. Only I'm the only one, and I really love Twitter. For some reason, I really love Twitter, but nobody has it. So, but anyway, thanks a lot, and I hope we will speak again soon.
We will.
Thank you.
Cheers and beers, guys. Cheers and beers.
Det är ju en jävla storyteller han är alltså.
Han är fantastisk på det där.
Det är ju jag kanske sa det medan vi spelade in med honom att jag var som lite orolig. Hur fan ska tiden räcka till? Och det är klart den inte räckte till.
Nej men han är så jävla fin alltså. Det som man slås av är ju den här förmågan att uttrycka sig och karisman och få fram poänger på ett så naturligt sätt. Det är så jävla kul att prata med Darren, för han vet vad han snackar om och han är inte rädd att säga vad han tycker liksom. Så det här känns som ett ganska så här, nu är det inte viktig samhällsinformation vi håller på med kanske, men för oss ölnördar är det liksom att fan, det är viktigt att höra vad han har att säga, för han var fan med från början och han har en otrolig insyn i det i med bryggeriet som han drev och liksom verkligen gjorde allt för i så många år. Nu har han ju tagit ett kliv tillbaka, men han är ju fortfarande liksom involverad så att säga.
Nej, men och det känns ju som att det är ju så tråkigt. Det är ju så jävla trist. Han har sitt lilla projekt. Han har byggt lite van och allting. Och jag är ju mest nyfiken på den här lilla vanen. För det kommer bli så jävla roligt. För jag vill se hur han har löst vissa saker. Och, man sitter och tänker på liksom, man har gjort den här vanen och så bara oops, nu blir det inget. Nej. Alltså det är så som ett
grymt alltså.
Alltså det är helt rubbat faktiskt, men jag tror ju att det här kommer att bli en bra grej när den väl får komma ut på motorvägen.
Det tror jag med, helt säkert.
Ja, du vet ju planen att han får ju plocka upp det i Umeå, så far vi upp till Mosquito County.
Ja, det här var ju så jävla kul att spela in varje månad. Känner man så här, fan, är det en hel månad till nästa gång? Men
det här var... Jag kan ju tycka att jag var i förmiddag så var jag så jäkla nervös inför idag. Jag vet inte varför. Det kändes som att det var så länge sedan vi spelade in, men sen inser jag att det är ju 26 dagar sedan. Men i och med att vi hade liven. Ja. Men jag vet inte varför. Jag fick bara någon konstig känsla över mig.
Ja, men det är ju så. Alltså det här är, vad blir det, avsnitt 6 tror jag. Och vi har inte hållit på så länge än. Det känns som att vi har det, för avsnitten är ju långa som fan. Men
vi håller på ett halvår. Vi har ju producerat material för ett år i alla fall. I och med att de har tänkt på att hålla sig en timme om man gör något sånt här, det är ju bara dumt.
Det går inte.
Nej.
Jag kan säga det nu också att vi har ju spelat in intervjun med Darren och brukar normalt sett liksom köra det här direkt efteråt, men det som hände med Darren nu, det var att det var så jävla trevligt att bara dricka en bärs och snacka. Så vi har ju suttit i typ en timme nu och bara pratat om allt möjligt. Och tyvärr har vi inte spelat in det. Men däremot så kan vi lova att det kommer att komma ett till avsnitt med Darren om ett tag. Ja, det blir väl ett långt tag gissar jag. Men så fort han har fått igång sin van som han har pratat om på slutet här, så jävlar, då ska vi se till att försöka göra någonting tillsammans igen.
Oj, jävlar vad vi ska maxa ut 4G-pottarna på telefonerna då.
Det ska vara helt slut efteråt. Det är
alltså, fan. Ska vi som en virvel där hos Delia.
Ja, nej, men det var riktigt roligt att träffa Darren. Och
ja, verkligen.
Som jag sa i intervjun där också, så följ hans YouTube-kanal Craft Van Life. Länk ligger här nedanför i beskrivningen. Följer ni inte oss så måste ni göra det givetvis, för hur skulle det gå annars? Då vet ni ju inte när vi släpper några nya avsnitt. Ni får följa oss på sociala medier.
Här också.
Ja, precis. Tumme upp,
det spelar
tumme ner.
egentligen ingen roll, för att alla interaktioner är liksom bra.
Det är sant.
Fast
det är inte många som
är bra.
Men det allra bästa är kommentarer. Så ni får skriv vad ni tycker om det här avsnittet här nedanför. Det skulle ju betyda skitmycket för oss att få se det. Och vi försöker alltid att svara och vara liksom aktiva där. Så fort jag får en liten notifikation från YouTube så är det som att man var så här, yes! Så kollar man och så är det en ny följare eller en kommentar eller någonting sånt där. Det gör min dag, jag blir så jävla glad. Och i och med det så är det dags att sätta punkt för månadens avsnitt. Tack så mycket alla ni som har kollat. Det var som vanligt skitroligt. Och jag vill snacka om det här precis innan. Det är så jävla roligt att göra det här. Men det är långt emellan. Men det är som det är. Tack så mycket. Vi ses om en månad. Vad fan var det vi snackade om? Jag kommer inte fan inte ihåg vad vi pratade om. Men en annan sak.
Ja, absolut.
Extreme. And if you'll excuse me, there's another little black extreme thing that I need to do right now. So, from the mountains in Sweden, until next time, cheers and beers. And cheers and beers, Beer Sweden sign. And Trev, we miss you. Hey.
That's bad technique.